How to install and use StableDiffusion-webui deforum as of April 2023. Prerequisites for this video: a working environment with StableDiffusion-webui installed, Git installed and able to use Git commands. If StableDiffusion-webui is installed in the default path, it can be introduced using the following command. I have included the command and URL in the overview section. After the Git clone process is complete, restart StableDiffusion-webui to complete the installation. If there is a deforum tab on the WebUI after restarting, the installation was successful. Deforum is a multifunctional tool that can be used to access various functions of StableDiffusion-webui. Even the author of this video has not fully grasped all of its functions. However, in this video, we will introduce you to camera work and frames. Firstly, it is important to note that even though deforum is used to create videos and animations, it actually creates stop-motion-like animations by processing a series of still images. First, let's talk about frames. On this screen, you can set the frame rate, which determines how many frames are inserted per second. The default is 15 frames per second. If you change it to 30 and create a video of the same length, you will need twice as many image files. This is because a video that uses 15 images per second will require 30 images per second. Once you've decided on the frame rate, the next step is to determine the length of the video. You enter the total number of frames you want to use for the video in the max frames section. For example, if you set the frame rate to 15 and the max frames to 120, the resulting video will be about 8 seconds long. Once you've determined the number of frames, try running a test. Select the Prompt tab and you'll see prompts, Prompt Positive, and Prompt Negative. The Prompt section contains a list of numbers and animal names like rabbit and cat. These are samples. You can input the content you want to change between each frame, such as changing from rabbit to cat between frames 0 to 29 in each frame. You can increase the number, but you can't input content beyond the max frames. Doing so will result in an error. In the Prompt Positive section, input the elements you want to incorporate throughout the video. In the Prompt Negative section, input the elements you want to remove throughout the video. If there are no issues, let's try generating the video. By default, this is the kind of video that will be generated. It's important to note that the first generated image is the basis for the subsequent images. This is because subsequent images are created with image-to-image. Also, as you can see in this sample, the default camera work for 2D is being used. 2D camera work. In camera work, zoom sets whether to zoom in or out an image. Angle rotates the image, while transform center X and transform center Y set the center of the video. Translation X and translation Y move the image parallel to the X and Y axis, respectively. Values can be positive or negative, and decimals can also be used. For instance, if you want to move the image to the right in parallel, enter a positive number for translation Y. Conversely, if you want to move it to the left, enter a negative number to move it to the left. 3D camera work. The 3D camera work is the personal favorite of the author for this project. While 2D camera work involves rotating angles or moving in one direction, 3D camera work functions as a three-dimensional perspective. Translation X and translation Y are parallel movements, just like in 2D. Translation Z is the zoom function, but instead of zooming in or out on the subject, it zooms in and out on the center of the screen. Rotation 3D X creates an angle that looks up or down. Rotation 3D Y creates an angle that looks left or right. Rotation 3D Z rotates the image. That concludes the functional explanation. Now let's talk about the author's impressions after trying it out. When the author used deforum, they wanted to create videos that surrounded the subject. So, they experimented with 3D camera work. As a result, they were able to create videos where the camera surrounds the subject, but when the subject's angle passed a certain point and went behind them, the subject appeared broken. The reason for this could be that there is no complete rear view model. Additionally, simply trying to surround the subject can cause the camera to penetrate the subject, or including a slight zoom out while surrounding cause the subject to become smaller and eventually break. Therefore, the author concluded that they need to limit the length of the video so that the camera does not surround the subject by more than 90 degrees, or not increase the number of frames too much. Alternatively, they could slow down the camera's speed to avoid surrounding the subject. The opening video was created using 3D camera work, and the camera information is listed in the summary section. If this video is well received, the author plans to create another video using Stable Diffusion.